3, 2, 1. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 111 of Midweek Metagame. I'm Harry MTG, joined by my two regular co-hosts, Patrick Robertson.
Good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
And Gabriel Nassif.
Hey, everyone.
Well. Hopefully, I'm praying that the audio quality on this new episode is really good, because for those listening, we are trying to record the podcast on a new medium. We're going through Discord this time, and hopefully the quality is really good, but be prepared for maybe some audio problems or whatever, as this is our first time recording it through Discord, so I'm nervous that maybe something will go wrong, but forgive us. Anyways, you're not here to hear me ramble about the editing. This week, we're here to talk about basically only Modern. We do have a bit of Pioneer towards the end, as Pat's been playing a few leagues, but mostly challenge breakdown, our testing, what we think of the format right now, because Modern is super hot. But as always, before we get into the episode, the podcast is brought to you by Card Market. They sponsor us. If you don't know what they are, they're the best place online to buy Magic the Gathering singles, accessories, anything card game related. Doesn't even have to be Magic. You can have Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, and they have a special announcement coming soon as well on their Twitter. So I think you guys should all check them out. Cardmarket.com or cardmarket.eu to do anything you like in the card game world. Anyways, if you personally would like to support the podcast, and the best place to do so is at patreon.com/midweekmetagame. You don't have to do so. No pressure, but that's the best place to support us. Let's get started, though. Modern. I want to start with the Modern Challenge this week. As Gab, you said there were some cool decks in the top 8s. So why don't we start it off from there?
Yeah, I don't know about cool decks, but Death Shadow crushed it again. Grixis Death Shadow won both days, Saturday and Sunday challenge. Soulstrong won on the Sunday, and he also top 8'd on Saturday. So the deck dominates. Soulstrong dominates. He's even done it on stream. I believe MTG Soulstrong on Twitch.
Yeah, I watched him. I watched his challenge win on the Sunday in the VODs. It was good.
Yeah, and that's what really stood out. Few interesting decks, but maybe not as many as last week. I played the Saturday challenge, and I decided to play Living End first. It was New Year's Day. First 8 games without a loss. I was 4-0, just cruising, and the wheels kind of fell off. I actually ended up losing 3 times to White-Black Hammer Time, despite the fact that I think it's an okay matchup. I made a few small mistakes. I've had kind of a curse in this specific matchup. I feel like whenever I play Living In against White-Black Hammer Time, it's kind of just a freak show. One of the games, I didn't find a Cascade spell in my top 29 cards, which was roughly 1 in 300 chances. And I did make small, I think maybe sideboarding mistakes, maybe a couple of sequencing mistakes as well. And that cost me. But yeah, besides that, the deck still felt pretty good. I know the white matchup, when they used to just not play the black, I felt like that matchup was close to a buy or really, really good. You could lose maybe on the draw if they had the fast kill and you didn't have interaction. The black definitely helps them a ton. I'm guessing it helps them in pretty much every matchup. Most people play black, even though I think maybe X-Whale and maybe Misplaced Ginger still plays the mono-white version. I'm not too sure, but
I've also seen versions splashing for green for Ancient Stirrings, which is like a pretty powerful card if it goes, finds you Hammer, it finds you Urza Saga in particular.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was a list that made top 8. They have it looks like Eastern European name. I'm not gonna try and pronounce it, but splashing Ancient Stirring. They have a Gaia's Blessing in the sideboard. I'm assuming that's for mill, and just add a little consistency, I guess. But yeah, just that matchup specifically, I think the black helps them a ton, and I've been impressed by that black splash for sure.
I think you get a lot of mileage for the Black Splash in a bunch of different matchups, and it's obviously you can just play a bunch of different tools. It could be like main deck, 4 Thought Seizers, or maybe you only want a couple of Thought Seizers, a bit of spot interaction. If you think you want to just like play a longer game, you can play main deck Val Confident. If you don't think people are going to turn up with a lot of spot removal, there's just a lot of ways you can go.
Yeah,
just access to extra sideboard cards, really.
And I guess the latest development has been the addition of the card Blacksmith Skill, which is a white instant from Modern Horizon 2. Target permanent gains hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. If it's specifically an artifact creature, it gets +2/+2, so you can protect your equipments, your aid, your creatures. And I've heard that card's pretty good.
Yeah, that is it. Especially as people move away from like red removal spells, like all lightning bolts and unholy heats, to a mix of like red removal plus fatal pushes and stuff like that, or Colligan's Command out of the Grixis Shadow deck. Having access to an effect that's not just like a power and toughness boost, but is actually straight up pure indestructible, goes a long way.
I think a lot of people as well miss on Blacksmith Skill is that it gives target permanent hexproof and indestructible. So it's been really annoying with Spreading Seas, as well as like when I was playing Esper Control, for example, there's Esper Charm that destroys an enchantment, or Wear Tear. So that I think it's really, really flexible and good against heavy removal decks.
Yeah, that's a great point, protecting your Urza Saga. We know Urza Saga is just so strong, can single-handedly win games. I know sometimes I'll start building control decks. I'll be like 4 Fatal Push, 4 Icefang Coddle, and I want to kind of keep it lean and not play too many powerful cards, kind of, Archmage. And I'm looking at the deck, I'm like, what if they just go like Artifact into Urza Saga? That's like, I need to use free cards just to deal with that card if I'm not putting 4 Spreading Seas in my main deck or something.
That's just kind of exactly why this deck is so powerful as well. It's like the perfect home for a card like Saga, because not only does it threaten these kind of turn 3 super fast goldfish draws, but it also just grinds so effectively. It has the draws where you just go like, cheap creature or cheap artifact, Urza Saga, and then the Urza Saga like goes and gets the massive 3-for-1 value. Or there's the other games where it acts like essentially just a suspend tutor for Colossus Hammer as well, which just like enables your fast kill. It's just such a powerful card in this deck, and it allows the deck to play both roles so well, which makes it such a probably the top of the modern metagame in general.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've been watching a lot of the. I think I mentioned it last week on the podcast, but on Twitch there's a trophy race right now, and I've been watching a lot of Misplaced Ginger play Hammer Time, and I've really, really liked his build, and I'm surprised to not see Ginger Brute in I think any of these Hammer lists in this top. Oh no, there's a Ginger Brute in X Will's list. I feel like Ginger Brute has been an insane card, being fetched from Urza's Saga specifically, and I think that Ginger really has his black-white Hammer deck down. Like, if I wanted to play a Hammer deck, I'd play his, because he has the perfect balance of Thoughtseize, and his main deck is so well thought out. But I mean, this is obviously what Ginger's going to build if he's playing like 50 leagues a day with Hammer Time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I didn't even kind of clue into the fact that you could get Brood off Saga. I thought it was just trying to, have another kind of artifact creature one drop that you wanted. But the evasive ability on Ginger Brood's obviously so powerful, and these kind of like longer games where you have to go get a threat off Saga. Another thing that's like so X Whale in 4th place on the Saturday challenge has 1 Ginger Brood in the main of his mono white deck. They also have 2 Core Outfitter, which is just like another, just copies 9 and 10 of the fast equip ability. And it's a card I've seen more and more recently. People just trying to max out on that effect so that you can have those draws where you cast Hammer into their removal and they remove it, and then you still have like the follow-up play essentially. Because if you just have aid in play, like you just get the one buy off the trigger essentially. Yeah. And then you got to try and draw Pure Steel Paladin or whatnot.
I think people used to play that card right at first, at some point anyways, and then it went away.
I think people kind of like start off being like, I'm just gonna have all the possible effects I can possibly have to put Hammer on my creature, and then that being a little bit too one-dimensional, but then you realize that you kind of need that effect quite badly.
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly if they began by playing that card, but I know it's been picking up in popularity recently.
Yeah, it makes sense. Just such a high impact play to equip your +10/+10 card on a creature. Why not? I don't have strong feeling either way. I feel like it's not really my type of card usually. I'm not a fan of cards that don't do much when you don't draw your other cards, but you are kind of all about Hammer in this deck, so you have 4 Stoneforge Mystic, 4 Hammer, so odds are you're going to have a Hammer in play in the early turns of the game, so why not?
I mean, it fits so nicely with a lot of the play patterns in this deck as well, because like so often you'll be like, okay, I have Pure Steel Paladin and Hammer, and then like there's tension about which order you play them in. Do you play the Paladin first and try and go for value to like draw the card when you play a Hammer, or do you lead Hammer and then cast Pure Steel Paladin so that you always get the equip trigger or equip activated ability when if they have removal or not, and then but both of those plays essentially if they wind up having like the removal spells that you need, like you just left with a Hammer sitting around in play, and so having extra ways to kind of just get another bite of that cherry is goes a long way and just kind of closing the door.
Yeah, it's like a really, 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 really poor man's Pure Steel Paladin. Obviously, sometimes it has an upside when you don't have all the artifacts, but yeah. There was a list or two. There was a Neoform Affinity deck that made top 16. There was also, I think, a Yorion Urza. We've seen a few Urza, blue-white Urza Thopter decks show up a bit, and there was a list that
Did you play a little bit of that deck this week?
It did well in I don't know what in a challenge. I tried the list. It was 60 card Thopter Urza. It had only 3 Thopter Foundries and 1 Sword of the Meek because it had Stoneforge Mystic was color complete. I went 1-4 with the deck in the league I played, but I will say it was kind of close games, kind of close matches. I felt like it was the same pitfalls for this deck. You're playing, you have to play 24 lands. You don't have a ton of card advantage. You have a powerful combo, but if they pick you apart, things can go poorly. And it was close in that way. I also tried the white-red prowess deck that had 4 light up the stage and 4 reckless impulse with a white splash for some path and some ending. I went 2-3, but once again, the deck felt okay. I didn't have the best record in the league. The deck felt fine, nothing super crazy. I thought maybe trying mutagenic growth in the main deck would be good, and I feel like they're always good in prize decks, and you can get people, and cards just really efficient when you're playing all these light up the stage and reckless impulse. So taking the list that Fracom used to come in second in the challenge last week, I would maybe trim a path, maybe move the path to the sideboard and play mutagenic growth. I wasn't sure if I wanted all light up the stage and reckless impulse, all 8. I think you want at least 7, maybe all 8. I think reckless impulse is maybe a bit better than light up the stage in this deck. So if you're gonna trim one, you might want to trim light up the stage. That deck felt okay too. And I played I built my own version of what was it? I think it was just maybe Urza. I forget now.
You played like a blue-white affinity deck as well.
Yeah, that too. I played my own version of Thopter Foundry was Urza, where was it? No, it was like blue-white Urza control basically. I think I was playing like Portable Hull, Esper Sentinel, 4 Archmage Charm, a few Teferi, some counterspell, and I was winning with 4 Urza, 1 Jace, 1 5-mana Teferi. So
you had a lot of talismans as well in that deck.
Yeah, so basically it was blue-white Thopter Foundry was at Thopter Foundry. And actually in the first league I played, I went 4-1. I only lost to the mirror match of all things. I got paired against another blue-white Urza deck, except they were playing the combo, and I'm not sure I won them the game. I didn't play. I think I maybe messed up, but that deck. So I was like, oh, and I actually beat all 3 top tier 1 decks in that league. I think I beat Grixis Shadow or Blue-White Murktide, and then I beat Hammer Time, and then I beat a Living End deck. So I was playing against the good decks too. And then I started another league, and I think I maybe started 1-2 and then dropped. And finally, I tried a Blue-White Affinity deck inspired from the Historic list. The list I'd been playing in Historic, the deck Aaron Girdler built originally. Because right now in Modern, the Affinity lists are usually mono blue, they're kind of a great mid-range deck. They can kill you somewhat fast with cranial plating, but not super fast, and they have a little disruption, maybe with Rebuke, but they can just grind like crazy because they play 4 Thoughtcast, 4 Thought Monitor, 4 Urza Saga, so they can go toe-to-toe with a lot of the mid-range decks and even the control decks. So people play either that version, there's that version splashing green for Neoform, and I tried to play a little more, a version with more interaction, I guess. I was playing Esper Sentinel and Portable Hull, And for Urza Saga, for Thoughtcast, for Thought Monitor, I tried to keep the curve pretty low, so no Urza. I wasn't playing Frogmite or the Cycling Mirror Enforcer, and I had a good result. I went 4-1 in my first league. The deck felt pretty powerful. It relied pretty heavily on Urza Saga. I felt like deck might be weak to Blood Moon and Alpine Moon, and I actually lost. My one loss was against White Red Soul Sisters. They were playing Soul Sister, splashing for Norin the Wary and some Blood Moons in the sideboard, and I got stuck.
I was watching the stream at that point, and it did not look like an enjoyable game for you.
The third game, I got Stony Silence in the third game, and that was my only loss. I haven't played the deck since, but it felt good. It felt functional. I was careful when I was building the deck with the mana base because you need untap white on turn 1 as well as blue. So you don't want to play too many lands. So basically every land has to be a dual land. I think I was playing maybe 1 island, 1 plains, and then Seachrome Coast, the white-blue artifact land was really good. Some Hallowed Fountains, and I think I played 0 copies actually of Citadel or Treasure Vault, or maybe a few, I don't remember. But the mana is a little tricky. So yeah, that deck was cool. So I didn't play a ton of Modern, but I tried a bunch of different decks, and
yeah, the mana's always been tricky in Affinity decks, even going back to the kind of early days of Affinity, where you obviously just wanted to play all these artifact lands, but they didn't make the colors of mana you wanted. So when you tried to load up on colored spells, you just had a really hard time casting them.
Yeah, exactly. You had Drum, you had Glimmer Void, basically, and I think the rule was you never wanted more than 4 colored spell in your deck because the mana base was 8 Nexus, 4 Citadel, 4 Glimmer Voids. I think that's 16. Yeah. And then maybe you had 1 or 2 basics usually.
And even going back to the kind of standard list in kind of original Mirrodin time, it felt like you could cast 4 Thoughtcast and maybe you could cast some Shrapnel Blast if you were really greedy. But whenever you wanted to board a colored card in, you had to take out another colored card. It was basically how it worked. But those decks had Chromatic Sphere and stuff in them as well.
I think it was a bit better because you had Glimmer Void and it was before the artifact lands were banned, right? So you
had all of it. It was just so hard to cast kind of reliably cast any colored spell because you could make colored mana, but it wasn't necessarily any mana that mattered to you at this point in time.
Yeah,
that's how I remember it being. You had access to essentially 5 colors of mana, but you needed to cast Disciple with Vault, and that took up space in your number of colored cards you could possibly play. But I don't know, here we are talking about 2004 standard.
Yeah, you also had Mox Opal, I guess. But yeah, I remember the rule being we had what was it? Did we have 4 Galvanic Blast, 4 Thoughtcasts in the main? But basically, I knew that after set where you didn't want to go too crazy was colored spells.
Yeah. Anyway. I mean, in the modern Affinity decks pre-Opal ban, that was definitely how it felt. You'd kind of have 3 or 4 blasts, or you'd have Thoughtcast if you really wanted them instead of Blast.
Yeah.
And then you couldn't really ever board in more than another couple of colored spells at any point in time. And they usually came at the expense of the colored cards in your deck.
Yeah. So you guys,
the mana is certainly a bit better in these ones because you have the blue-white tap land and you're only trying to cast 2 colors worth of spells, but at the same time trying to fit all these colorless lands in and then do other, cast normal spells is not really possible.
Well, it's only good because you don't get to play as many colorless spells. You're playing 4 sagas and then few artifact lands and not being too greedy. But yeah, the dual lands are pretty sweet. I think you guys played a little Modern too, right?
Yeah, so I finished off a league with Grixis Shadow, and then I played 2 leagues with Blue-Red Murktide that I kind of spoke about a little bit at the end of last week. Played with main deck Blood Moon, kept trying out Season Pyromancer in the sideboard. It was pretty effective for me. Whenever I drew it, it was either the target of discard spells against for my Death Shadow opponents, or it was providing good blockers for Jace in matchups, where I was bringing in both cards. No, I didn't play against the exact come up with the exact situations I theory crafted it for, which was my opponents have Rest in Peace or whatnot, and that shuts things down. Or they have it's really good against Solitude. I didn't play against a Solitude deck at all, but I was pretty impressed with Blue Red. It's a deck I just keep winning with, despite the fact that it's probably not as well positioned as it could be, or it was certainly as well positioned as it was a couple of months ago. I was going to play a big tournament soon, I'd probably be playing Death Shadow rather than Murktide, but I had a good time playing it anyway. Yeah, I also just play Pioneer as the other thing I did this week, but we can talk about that a little bit later. I know that Harry played a bunch and should probably get that off his chest.
A bunch. I don't know why. I mean, it seems like I've played a bunch. I've been pumping out YouTube content, but I played
It might
two.
be. I mean, people might
Yeah.
think that you've been playing a lot because every time you do play something, you get 2 bites of it. You stream it and then you upload it.
Yeah, definitely. That's kind of my, I guess, content structure is that because I'm studying all the time. I guess, yeah, I'm now not only am I doing a degree in maths, trying to do YouTube, but I'm also learning Mandarin. I'm studying like 2 hours a day of Mandarin Chinese. Um, so my days are so busy, it's really hard to fit it all in. But yeah, this week I played um Esper Control, the Wafo Tappa list last week that we talked about. I actually, you know what? For once, I told the truth about my future on the last episode of the podcast. I played the Esper Control list from Wafo Tappa, and I also played the Red-White Prowess deck that we talked about as well. So I got basically both of the decks I wanted to try out. The Wafo Tappa list I really, really, really liked. It was really good. Esper Charm was nuts. I won 2 matches, forcing people to discard cards. Esper Charm destroying Dryad was relevant. Esper Charm destroying Eidolon was relevant. Esper Charm destroying Urza Saga was relevant. And Esper Charm for me was really, really, really good. The mana base supported it. And Kaya's Guy was also really good. Incidental Exiling the Graveyard was great. The life game was great. The token was relevant. You know, I feel like we don't play we don't miss Snapcaster Mage as much anymore attacking Planeswalkers because we can kind of counter them. Whereas Kaya's Ga was really nice making 1/1s to attack the face. I feel like a lot of mana bases now people burn themselves down. So sack make a 1/1. That token was really good at chipping away. People don't really have flying blockers. For example, Dragon Rage Channeler always has to attack. That was great. What else did I like about the Esper list?
Did that league actually go well? Because the only game I caught was you winning with Emrakul in game 2 against Blue White and getting wrecked by Rest in Peace in the 3rd game.
Oh yeah, that was my one loss. I went 4-1.
Oh, you actually went 4-1. Nice.
Yeah. It was really sick.
Paid off though. You were really down in
Emrakul, the
last week.
Promise End. Yeah.
Instant Speed Stone Rain is kind of a pog. Just instant speed kill your Urza Saga on tap.
I guess that's something to highlight. Actually, you were watching. I cast Emrakul, and my opponent's hand was Jace, Force of Negation.
It was Jace. No, you
Solitude to Fairyland.
Yeah, you went Jace, counter my own Jace, Solitude with Teferi, fetch nothing, and then left them was like 2 lands in hand or something. It was Mind Twist, basically.
It was so sick. Emrakul was so sick. It like the relevant thing there is Emrakul in the past, you would try and like cast a fairy and tuck itself. Bro, they got a Solitude. That trash is, you know, you're pitching their best white card in their hands. So that was pretty good. Was there any last comment on the Esper list? I don't think so. I think all I wanted to really highlight is that if your metagame is really full of like burn, low to the ground decks, I crushed them this league. I beat Amulet Titan, Hammer Time, Jeskai Prowess. It was just the red-white splashing blue for expressive iteration as well. And then I beat like the blue-white Urza deck that Gab was talking about as well. And then I lost a really, really close one to blue-white control. So I really, really liked the deck overall. Honestly, Esper was really good. Is there any questions you guys have?
Sounds like it could be really good against Grixis Shadow. You get Fatal Push for efficiency. You get extra charms. I'm assuming you were playing 4, knowing it's Wafo, he had 4 Esper Charm and 4 Archmage Charms, or maybe not 4 Esper Charms.
4 Archmage's Charm, 2 Esper Charms.
Yeah, so extra card advantage. Kaya's Gal, I feel, is a scary card for Grixis Shadow. So yeah, sounds pretty good. You're not playing Spreading Seas, which is, I'm assuming you're not playing Spreading Seas, or maybe not in the main deck?
4.
Oh, 4 in the main?
4 in the main.
Okay. I was going to say that card's maybe not the greatest against Grixis Shadow, but...
Yeah. Actually, one thing to highlight, to be honest, now that I have the list up on my screen, the card that surprised me the most was Fracture. That card was nuts. Destroy target artifact, enchantment, or planeswalker for a white and black. that card, every time I sideboarded in that card, not only did I draw it, but it did bits. It did bits, and it's really really good. I think if I play this deck again, I'd play like 2 or 3 copies.
So you're saying you not only you have 3 mana instant speed Stone Rain, you have a 2 mana instant speed Stone Rain?
Yeah.
Damn. Yeah, that does sound good against Amulet Titan. Kills Amulet, kills Saga, kills the Dryads.
Yep.
Yikes.
It was really, really, really good.
Yeah.
As well as like Amulet Titan now plays cards like Expedition Map, which they'll sometimes naturally draw. Like it just I really, really like Fracture. I hated Celestial Purge, but maybe that's because of my matchups, but
yeah, I would guess it probably still suffers from control. When you win, it's gonna look great, when you curve out and you have the right amount of lands and spells, and it feels like
a genius.
you have an answer to everything they do. But at the end of the day, I feel like control decks in Modern, you're still gonna just lose yourself a lot just because you have to play 25, 26 lands and hope to have 3 lands and 4 spells in your opening hand or draw well, whereas everyone's playing like these 18 land decks, or when they're not playing 18 lands, they have like 4 Urza Saga and But yeah, the black cards do all sound good.
I definitely think we've seen much less blue-eye control and decks of that ilk over the last month or so than we had maybe in a couple of months beforehand. Seems that like the rest of the format's caught up and is kind of working, fighting on that axis pretty effectively. I think like the switch from the aggro control deck essentially being from blue-red Murktide, which is somewhat spotty against blue-white and Solitude, to just Death Shadow, where you just have no kind of massive high investment cards to get butchered by Solitude, and you don't really care about them shutting down counters with Teferi, less vulnerable to Teferi, Time Raveler, and this sort of stuff. It means that there's no natural kind of thing for blue-white to prey on as much anymore.
You also have Kolaghan's Command for Chalice of the Void.
Exactly, like main deck non-convoluted outs to get Chalice of the Void is really quite powerful. Yeah, I really don't like the engineered explosives in the main of the Murktide deck. Like I think it's a necessary evil, but not a card that I'm really that happy to have in my main.
I never felt like blue-red Murktide was bad against blue-white. My sample size was not huge, but
I think it was the sort of matchup that I was winning it about as much as I was losing it, and definitely didn't believe anyone who said that like, oh, this is like a great matchup for blue-white. I think we've been over this a couple of times before. But I felt like you traded mana efficiently with them.
Yeah, I remember. I remember saying that like, blue-white's good and against Murktide, and when I played the blue-white side against a good player, it didn't feel good, honestly. And when I played from the Murktide side, I was mostly winning. So
yeah, that was my experience as well. I mostly won from the Murktide side, but I definitely just saw enough reports of this matchup is bad for blue-red Murktide that it's probably means something at the very least. And I can see why people would think that. There's a lot of Supreme Verdict is a card that make you vulnerable to, if you're configured in a relatively one-dimensional way. You're soft Chalice of the Void if they manage to resolve that card. You have a lot of counter spells. Maybe it's very Time Raveler makes it life hard for you. But if you just know that that's the sort of thing the sort of way that they're interacting with you, then it's pretty easy to not get caught with your pants down, and you're actually able to go toe to toe in the long game with them, really, with cards like Expressive Iteration.
Yeah. You played that wedge.
One thing I think that the control deck. One thing I think that the control decks have picked up that making their life a little bit easier though is some high quality creature lands again. Hall of the Storm Giants has been a really big pickup for any of these blue control decks. Just getting that extra mana source in the deck that's also like a really powerful threat. Colonnade is like, Colonnade is a pretty good card, but it doesn't quite close the game as fast. And it's coming to play tapped means that it compromises you in the early game, which is obviously really important in a format like Modern. Whereas at least you get to play your turn to whole counterspell mana up if you draw Hall of the Storm Giants in your opening hand.
I like the word compromise. Yeah, I like the once played Colonnade Hall in blue-white. Somehow I felt like I always had the one I needed when I needed it. When I needed the late game beater, I had Hall. When I needed it exactly on turn 6, kill Liliana at Colonnade. Did the Esper deck play any man lands? Maybe 1 or 2?
Yeah, 1 Colonnade, 1 Hall. Both were nuts. I had them both when I needed it. But, I think that might be because you're just when you need them, you're flooding, and when you don't
Yeah.
need them, you have spells to cast, right?
Yeah. People ask me a lot about one-ups, and one of the upsides of one-up, especially in this specific case where they're lands, is that when you draw both, you have the choice of which one you want to use, rather than just have two of the same where, okay, I just, have one option. So that's like nice little upside of the one-ups. What about the white-red deck? How did that deck feel for you?
So I went 3-2. My 2 losses, one was to blue-white control, and one of them was to goblins.
Yeah.
No, I beat goblins. I don't know, but I was really bad with this deck. I feel like this white-red prowess deck, with 8 divinations, I feel like you have to know when to cast the bull, when to cast the dart. Should you save it? Should you put lures to hand? Like, one league for me wasn't enough to play it efficiently and like really know how good it is. But from what I saw, I was drawing a load of cards. I always, either had the removal spell or had ways to dig for it. The only games where I felt really out of my comfort zone was lowland games. So I really like the deck. I think something to highlight is Lava Dart is really, really powerful right now with everyone casting Channelers and Ragavans. I think that's obvious, but that to me was kind of the reason why I want to be playing this deck, is you can just go like turn 1 Channeler, turn 2, another 1-drop plus Dart, and then just go from there. That was really sick. And then as well as like I felt like I had extra leverage against very interruptive decks, because if they interrupt my divination, oh, that's okay. I've got the lures, or I can put the lures to hand, or maybe I know they're holding up a removal spell. Okay, I'll do something, put lures to hand, or I'll divination, like bait the lures, or put lures into hand next turn. They have to have an answer for it, and I just divination instead. Like these lines of lures plus 8 divinations made it really, really awkward for my opponents. So that's one thing I think is really good about the deck. And I think you have to be really good at red decks to understand how to play this too, because I did not understand how to play it.
Yeah, definitely structured less like a burn deck, or even less like an aggro creature deck, and more like almost kind of combo deck in a lot of respects. That's also trying to grind like a grindy combo deck, which is a strange thing to describe it as, but that's kind of how it plays. And you're right. These are the sort of decks that when I sleeve them up or load them up on Moto, it takes me a while to get my head around exactly what I'm supposed to be doing, because the cards look like they do one thing, but really they're actually trying to do something a little bit different. And if you don't get milk every single card for what it's worth, then it can be really quite hard to win those middle ground games. Like, obviously you can just have games where you run your opponent over or they run you over, but then those ones in the middle, you really got to scrap and fight for them. But the percentage points are probably there.
Yeah, definitely. I really like the deck. I think it has potential. To me, this feels like I've played like Murktide in the early days. It felt really, really powerful.
Yeah, I felt that way a bit with iteration in the Grixis Shadow deck more so than in blue-red. That I had to be a little bit more careful with iteration, because the deck I mean, it's the same number of lands, right? It's 18 or 19 in Murktide and in Grixis Shadow.
Yeah, I think Shadow has 19 typically, and I would say Blue Red has 18 typically.
Yeah, maybe it was true with Murktide too, that you have to be a tiny bit careful with iteration, because it's not a given that you're gonna hit a land. And
one thing that I found that interesting about iteration playing these Shadow decks is that you're less not that you're less you use less often looking for lands, but you have far more spells that you can cast
right away
when you don't hit land.
Yeah,
So
that's
you
fair.
can whereas if you don't turn up land in the Murktide deck, it's almost a disaster a lot of the time, because you're really hoping for that three mana, find your third land and put the counter spell in your hand or stuff like that. Whereas the Grixis Shadow deck can really just go like, oh shit, I turned up 3 spells. Okay, I'll take that one and I'll play my 1-drop.
Yeah, so it's weird that I felt that way was the Grixis deck. Maybe it was just small sample and I got a bit unlucky in a couple spots.
No, I mean, I certainly feel like it's the sort of thing where Shadow often really, 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 really wants to hit that land, and if you don't hit it, it can be really miserable.
Yeah,
because obviously half the power of these decks is where you cast like 2 or 3 spells a turn regularly.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're pinning yourself to casting 1 spell a turn, like, your cards don't really stack up that well.
Yeah, there's a couple spots where I guess Lurrus made it a little more tricky too, knowing when to put Lurrus in your hand. I think it's same with Hammer Time. it's not always obvious when to put Lurrus in your hand and when to do other things.
Yeah, definitely. I've as much as I think that companion is like a bad thing for Magic in general, the change they made to nerf the power level of them overall at least introduced some interesting tension.
Yeah, for sure. Rather than just the tension of like, oh, I get to play the deck I want to play anyways, minus maybe 4 cards, and I get a free Lurrus.
Yeah, exactly.
Or I get like a tiny bit more variance in my draws and I get a free Orion. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I can't believe that it was was it less than a year ago that we were allowed to do all that for free? Or maybe it was like a year ago.
And not only that, but I'm not even sure it was super obvious to everyone right away how good. I remember thinking Yorion, the downside might be a little too much. I think Lurrus people were kind of onto it right away.
I mean, Lurrus were banned in Vintage.
Pretty much,
people were onto it.
Yeah.
I remember thinking they were like, okay. I remember saying on the podcast specifically, like, do you even play this in Death Shadow? You can't play Street Wraith. I remember saying that.
Yeah, I remember thinking I wasn't sure the 20 extra cards was worth it for a lot of decks. For, that Yorion was worth it.
Well, turns out it was.
Yeah, and then I spent the next like however long before they nerfed it playing all Yorion decks.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh,
Yeah.
I miss Urza plus Yorion, dude. That was like I think that's probably the time I love Magic the most. Oh no, actually, maybe I love Magic more with Uro Sanctuary, but
I missed the phase of Yorion Demir Inverter. That was that was a good time.
I mean,
where they started trying to go over the top of.
It's more of a meme now, just add Yorion in 20 cards, but back then, at some point, it literally was, weren't you just adding, every control deck, plus 4 Omen of the Sea, plus a few lands, Yorion, boom, done.
Yeah, literally.
Makes every deck better.
Wow,
I'm very glad they nerfed them, and we still have to play against them kind of 4 rounds out of 5.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, I definitely think that companions are still having a big impact on the format, though.
Absolutely.
I think it was it Canister who tweeted that Lure should be banned? I think I don't know if he was trolling or not, but there is a lot of like talk of our companions having too much of an impact on the format. Do you guys want to talk about that?
Absolutely. I'd love to. I can go into this a bit.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, I think honestly the companions really do warp how we all build our decks. Like, for example, I mean, even control decks have been insanely warped with how we can't play Snapcaster, Vendilion Click, or whatever because they don't match the creature type of Kahira. Having Kahira in the companions is so key for Solitude, for example. Like, I feel like almost every archetype is warped by the companion zone, and I think that if you want to really open up to more cards in the format, if you take out companions, there will be more unique looking and also I think very different card quantities between lists. I feel like the companions make everyone kind of play very similar lists. So that's one thing I'll agree on.
I feel like Modern might be...
Yeah, go.
I feel like Modern might be that way even without the companions. I mean, I saw your video on YouTube. You were talking about cards like Liliana of the Veil, and I think just in general, you can't just play mid-range, really. I was talking about it for blue-white control, but it's true for mid-range. You just are going to be at a natural disadvantage if your deck's just 24, 25, 26 lands and a bunch of free 4 or 5 mana cards, because you're just not going to be as consistent. You're going to mulligan more. When you're mulligan, your hands are going to look worse. So, a card like Urza Saga, you literally can't really play expensive cards because it's just such a non-synergy. So maybe the companion exacerbate that problem, but I'm not sure it would really matter that much.
That makes a lot of sense to be fair. I think also though the problem is as we print more and more cards, there are naturally going to be cheaper and more efficient cards being released, whether it's over like a year like it has been or over many years. So my YouTube video was biased. I was comment baiting. I guess for those listening who haven't seen my YouTube video, just top 5 modern staples we forgot, and then I just listed off like every boomer's dream of a modern deck, basically. And then at the end, I did like this twist at the end, and I was like, oh, modern's a rotating format now, not an eternal format. What do you think of the future of modern? Then I bait a lot of comments. Anyways, I think that these cards are bound to be kind of wiped away into history because of what Gav has hinted at. Is that it's inevitable for better cards to be printed. Like, do you want WotC to just print trash cards for the rest of Magic's future? That's just not going to happen.
I'll be perfectly frank. Some of the standard formats and constructed formats of Magic history that I've enjoyed the most are when the cards is absolute rancid.
Really?
Absolutely. Kamigawa block, out of garbage.
I think the thing
Amazing
is,
constructed format.
but high power formats, do you think they're more or less fun then? So you're saying they're less fun?
I think high power formats are more fun in general.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think that's what WotC are kind of leaning into. But it kind of feels like, I feel like that's as well as what most card games go down.
I mean,
Or does that imply the
power
death
creep
of
is
a
an
card game?
inevitability. Can I
Yeah.
just maybe I can address both of your points gradually? I think, on Gab's point at the deck building cost of companions, maybe not as restricting deck building creativity as much as we might think. I do think it eliminates the ability to kind of have that gradual arms race almost in the mirror, if you know what I mean. Like, there's this thing that happens naturally when like a deck rises to the top of the metagame where the deck sort of like inbreeds against itself, and that opens up space for another deck to come in and actually compete with it once it weakens itself on whatever axis is weakening itself on to gain an advantage in the mirror. And so if you look at a deck like Death Shadow, if you had no Lurrus in the equation, it might be increasingly correct for you to start playing cards like Liliana or the Veil as a kind of powerful thing to trump them when they get a creature advantage ahead of you, like play your Planeswalker, kill your creature. But you can't justify doing that because it takes away Lurrus at this moment. But if you don't have Lurrus around, then you can start engaging in that arms race, which naturally opens up space in the metagame for other decks to fight again. And just on the idea of like printing cards and new stuff, one of the problems I have with companions in general is that it was such a failure in general. I think it was kind of widely considered a failure and an experiment gone wrong. They're not going to print anymore. And so these are the ones we're just going to be stuck with forever. And so do I really want to play against Lurrus for the next like 15 years? I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good point. I will say
Really?
the arms race can happen in other ways. For instance, in the Grixis mirror match, maybe you can load up on more spell bombs in your sideboard and more. I'm not sure. I'm gonna say Kolaghan's Command. I'm not sure if it's the best card in the mirror, but so that can happen in that way. And if sideboards start getting inbred, even though sideboards are not as crucial as they were in the past because the cards are more versatile and stronger, etc. Cards like Prismatic Hand makes it so that you'll need like all the like specific sideboard cards. It can still happen in that way. Maybe people can exploit that. Oh, they're playing more Graveyard Aid this weekend and can something like that. But yeah,
that's a narrow form of the arms race that generally happens. I find you look at the options you're talking about. Like, do you even really want to bring in more than like one or two copies of Nile Spellbomb ever in the mirror? Like, how far down the kind of rabbit hole do they have to go for you to seem to like? It's great for you to draw an opening hand with multiple Nile Spellbombs in it. Like, it's basically just a straight up mull. But when you have access to cards like Liliana are actually interesting Magic cards to kind of think about having in your deck. I think, at least I personally think.
Yeah,
I could definitely be willing to be wrong.
That's so crazy. Because we're going to be playing against these companions like people play fetch lands for the rest of modern, right? Is what you're saying.
That's more or less what I think. Will inevitably happen. Like, I just don't. They're never going to print another companion, surely.
They could eventually ban Lurrus. It hasn't been too bad so far, but right now, arguably, White Black Hammer Time and Grixis Shadow are the two best decks, and they're kind of hard to attack. And well, I mean, we'll see. It's
I just
tough.
think it makes it when the companion decks are the actual best decks in the format, though, as well. It just makes it so hard for you to justify playing something else that doesn't have a companion.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's like one of the big knocks against Murktide. I think is like, what companion can you play? You can't. can't play a companion.
Yeah. And also, I know it felt especially bad when I was playing that 4-color Omnav deck with all these mid-range cards, and I was just losing the late game to Grixis Shadow because they had Lurrus, they didn't need expensive cards, they had Iteration for card advantage, Drown in the Log for answers, and
Yeah, I mean, it's
I was
Lewis
losing.
is a problem card, let's be frank.
Yeah, you should never lose. Was that a deck that's playing 4 or 5 mana cards against a deck that's all 1 and 2 mana cards? It doesn't seem like you should lose a game that goes to like turn 20, turn 25. That's not right. That ain't right.
It feels somewhat similar to how I felt when they printed Supreme Verdict, and I was like, this is just not supposed to be how things are. If you cast Wrath of God, you shouldn't be good against decks casting creatures and counterspells. That's just the way of Magic lore, and I refuse to hear otherwise.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Dude, that's so nuts. I'm just really caught up on. I think they will. Do you think they're waiting until companions all rotate out of standard?
Harry's having
I
it.
rotated it.
Yeah, they have rotated.
They have. Oh,
Yeah.
well, I really don't follow standard.
They might be waiting
That's so
till
funny.
Modern is played at in big tournaments again, or we get more data, or they might not care. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
I think Gav's right. I think that if and when we see a large scale paper modern tournament for stakes again,
yeah, and the
and
top
it's
eight's like
dominated
7
by
lures.
companion.
Yeah.
They might go, maybe we should do something about this.
My vote is to ban. I think I actually have changed my opinion. I was like, maybe now I actually think ban. Unless they're planning to print more companions, then I'm like, okay, maybe not. But
Please
even
don't-
then, I don't really
Please
like
don't
the
wish that
companion
upon us,
mechanic.
Harry.
I don't really like the companion
The
mechanic.
monkey paw is like curling a finger down.
You know why Harry got us talking about that, right? Just so he can put it in the title for clickbait. Because people love ban talk, even if they claim they don't. I see you,
What do you think
Harry.
the title of this episode is going to be? What do you think this title of this episode is
Oh, I
going to
know. Yeah, I know how you roll.
be? Hi, everyone who got clickbaited.
I don't like hold it against Watsy for trying to do that sort of thing though. Like I think it was like an interesting idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think almost more interesting than trying companion in general was the fact that they made it like a large scale errata nerf, which is something that may probably open the door to stuff like them thinking it's okay to try these historic anthology cards and alchemy and this sort of stuff. Being like, hey, maybe we can actually do this. It's fine. Whereas, they'd be really, really, really hesitant to pull the trigger on power level errata in just, for sake of like the physical card that you hold in the hand, it does what it says it does, kind of simplicity's sake. Whereas, I think it opened up a lot of doors, but I think overall it's a failed experiment. And I'm with Harry. I think just ban is better in the long run than keep it around. But I think that it'll happen somewhere down the line once we see real results.
Yeah.
So where do you stand, Gab? So me and Pat are on ban. What do you think?
I'm not sure. You could argue that Lurrus makes the format good in some ways, just like some people are arguing Ragavan makes the format better in some ways. So
Okay.
I don't feel
Gun
super.
to your head, yes or no?
I don't feel super strongly about it right now. I'd still say no, but I also don't play the most modern.
Fortunately, it's a democracy, and Harry and I have voted in favor of banning, so it'll be banned.
Okay.
As of Monday.
All right.
Okay,
I just
cool.
always say, I just play with the cards they tell me to play with. And...
Oh, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. That's the mindset that you're supposed to have when you're turning up and playing tournaments and playing competitive Magic. Like, who gives a shit what card text is printed on the card? Tell me what's the best thing to do, and I'll do it. You're going out there to win.
No, I think it's okay to care about that stuff too. I guess historically, I've never been super involved in that,
but
dialogue on social media.
There's a huge disconnect, I think, between like playing competitive Magic and thinking about like what's good or bad for Magic as on the whole, or for a format on the whole. I think those are two separate issues that are almost mutually exclusive.
Yeah, that's fair.
Take off the tournament player hat and put on the kind of game design kind of theory crafty hat on, and then
Yeah.
put the tournament hat back on and say, just sleep up my Luros, please. This is what I want to do. Like I want to win this tournament. Speaking of winning tournaments, a small foray into Pioneer after Dom Harvey won the online Pioneer PDQ with Jeskai Ascendancy combo, which is that was good fun. I think I might have talked a tiny bit about Pioneer the other week, where I'd started playing a few leagues with blue black control, and this week I played a couple of leagues with this Ascendancy deck and also with blue white control as well.
What's in it?
Okay, so the Ascendancy deck is like eight opts, 4 portable hull, 4 Sylvan Carroted, 4 Expressive Iteration, 4 Sylvan Awakening, which is a green and 2 color sorcery that turns all your lands into 2/2s with haste and reach. So that's part of your combo, obviously, with Jeskai Ascendancy, which you also have 4 copies of. Has 2 copies of Feybar Elder, which is a green, white, and 1 colorless for a star creature that has power and toughness equal to the number of colors of permanents you control, has vigilance and taps
my
for
gosh.
mana equal to the number of colors of permanents you control, has 4 treasure crews, and is there anything else in his list that I'm forgetting off the top of my head? I think that's pretty much it. And there's 25 lands, obviously. And in the sideboard, there was a whole bunch of weirdness. So he has a few more Feybar Elders, a bunch of counter spells, a Malevolent Hermit, a Yashan, which is really good against the Jund Food deck that I was actually pretty impressed with when I drew it. Yeah, so it's a whole bunch of... It's just a combo deck, and it's got a lot of card advantage, so it sits there and grinds really well. It has Gigantha as its companion, and it also which is like functions as a nice combo piece as well. It's a really clean list, and he had some nice takes on it. Unfortunately, when I played the deck in the first league, I played against Blue Eye Control 4 times, and that deck has like 4 Absorb, 4 Dobbin's Veto, so I just couldn't ever win. And it also has 3 Narset in the main as well, so you're just a huge dog in that matchup. It's a sort of matchup I think you could swing by like going more in favor of Malevolent Hermits rather than Mystical Disputes. But at the same time, really dog shit matchup. But the deck was really fun to play and super powerful. Like every time I played against a deck that was trying to do relatively non-targeted hate stuff, I was just comboing quite leisurely, I think. It has enough kind of like presents blockers, has good card advantage against discard spells, and then goes off in a relatively robust way. And it's a deck that I think has been doing quite well recently. I don't know if anyone else has noticed this, but like my Twitter feed is like full of Pioneer decks over the last couple of weeks. And like maybe some of that's to do with the fact that there was this PDQ coming up, or there was like a Mox open a couple of weeks ago as well. But it seems like more and more people are kind of starting to gravitate back towards that format now that there's a little bit more paper play happening, and modern's gotten really expensive as well, and people are maybe like losing interest in Arena somewhat due to the fact that like there's a disconnect between paper and Arena now, or that disconnect is becoming wider with the inception of Alchemy. Maybe Pioneer's on the up again. I'm not willing to give up on it.
I think, honestly, well, I actually have seen a lot of Pioneer stuff, but that's because I follow Harry 13, obviously, shout out to the UK stuff, and he's on like some on TAC team, and they do a ton of Pioneer stuff, and I watched the most recent Pioneer Challenge top 8 because a Keros MTG, I believe, sorry if I pronounced your name wrong, made the top 8 with Blue Red Phoenix. I watched him play in the quarterfinals against Matthew Folks on Mono Red. So I guess kind of my only question was, those two decks, Arclight, Blue Red Phoenix, Mono Red, when I was playing Pioneer Mono Green Planeswalkers like a year and a half ago on the podcast, maybe a year, these were the decks I was playing against. Is Mono Green Planeswalker still around? Like, how much of the Pioneer metagame do you know? Because to me, it just seems like a format that was kind of left to the side and hasn't changed.
Well, it's certainly a format that was left to the side and hasn't. Well, it's definitely been evolving, but it hasn't had a huge number of people working on it. I mean, I feel like the top decks are pretty well solidified at the moment. There's like Blue Red Phoenix and Vampires, so like mono black splash white Vampires. Then there's like a couple of different flavors of control. There's this Ascendancy combo deck, and there's Lotus Field combo deck, which doesn't have Underworld Breach anymore, but it's still more or less is a kind of like good big mana, difficult to interact with combo deck. And then there's like there's burn decks. There's like I play against like red green what's the spell called that's like it's like a 5 mana enchantment that like says like when you cast a spell you exile you like counter it and then like cast the next spell down that has the same type. I'm trying to
Oh, the combo
Oh,
deck. That deck's not very good though.
Possibility Storm.
I've
Something
actually
like
played
this.
against it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not. I don't think it's like a tier one deck or anything like that, but it's definitely a deck that's showed up. Like Niv Mizzet's still around.
Yeah.
I was saying before we started the cast, and so these guys have heard it already, but I think that um, there's a somewhat of as more and more stuff like Alchemy comes out and more Modern Horizon sets come out, there's got to be a space in Magic for this format that doesn't contain any of these kind of like essentially new style Magic thing going on. They've actually I think they did a really smart thing in Pioneer, despite all the neglect and nonsense. Is that after they banned all the combo stuff, the inverter and the walking ballista and all that sort of stuff, they left it to rot for a while. But then they did one ban update where they banned um like Wilderness Reclamation, Teferi, Time Raveler, and a whole bunch of stuff that was just really horrible from like the 2019-2020 era. So like Uro's gone and all that sort of stuff is just gone. It's out of the format. Don't have to worry about it anymore. And so you don't play against any of the bullshit stuff that happened in the last 2 or 3 years, and you don't play against any of the weird kind of supplementary sets that also that augment it. Oh, another deck that I should talk about, I should mention is really good is John Sacrifice. It's like it wins a lot of events in Pioneer at the moment, and that looks very much like the old standard deck or the historic deck. Really, a lot of Throne of Eldraine cards. Like Throne of Eldraine's kind of like B-list hits. The cards that didn't get banned from Throne of Eldraine. Anyway, I think it's a format that's got a bit more life left in it, and as more and more paper stuff starts happening, and maybe once we get back to like larger scale events for stakes, like, and people are looking for a change from a format like Modern, because let's be frank, no one's going to be able to run a standard event and have it be taken like get the sort of attendance they want anymore. I think that Arena's kind of just meant that why would I bother having a paper standard collection? I think that you'll find that these paper events are going to be like a mix of limited and modern and pioneer, sorry, as the kind of second or third option for running these events. And so I expect over the next couple of years we'll see more pioneer and more interest in the format, and people will learn it's actually kind of Magic like you remember it 5 years ago, which is not necessarily the worst thing on planet Earth. Bit of nostalgia.
Yeah, and actually, Prof, who I watch some of his YouTube videos sometimes, and he think you should bring Pioneer to Arena. He think that would be one of the best ways to quote unquote fix some of the problems with Arena, is to just have Pioneer, because it lets you play with all these cards you've crafted and that you don't use much anymore. So he seems to think Pioneer would be a great addition to Arena as a format, given that Alchemy is just too powerful for the old standard cards.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. They created the historic and maybe to a lesser extent Alchemy as this kind of. Initially, they were like, "Oh, this is something that you can do with your cards after they rotate," because obviously people were like, "When I spend all my money on these cards and they rotate, then they do nothing, but I can't turn them into dust or anything like that to craft new cards." It's like, "Okay, it's fine. We'll create historic," and then they were like, "Here are a bunch of absurdly powerful cards for historic that we're just going to force print in." And now none of your standard cards matter again, and so that's kind of shitty. It's a shitty thing to happen. And Pioneer was created explicitly for this kind of reason. They said like, Modern's 10+ years old now. There's no, or 15 years old now. There's no reason to believe that cards that get printed in standard and rotate in the Modern are going to have some impact in that format because it's so big and powerful. We needed to create some intermediary spot where people will still get to do things with the cards that have rotated out of standard. And yeah, I think there's a need for that format, and it's always been there, and it just needs eyeballs on it and reasons to play it. I think so. For a long time, I was a big Pioneer apologist, and then we stopped talking about Pioneer in general, and I'm back. I'm back being the Pioneer apologist.
Yeah, I was not always, but I think at some point at least I felt like that format was made a little too vanilla, and
You were the big Pioneer hater for
the
sure.
gameplay was not the most exciting.
I think that's why people like it so much, because it's quite simple, but also has a complicated. Like it's a lot more simple turns and more turns, like single turns that make the game. Sorry.
I don't think that you can open a sentence by like the most unpopular format in Magic history. People like it so much because
Yeah.
No, I think the reason why people liked it at the start, it seems to be a very simple format, but I think it's died because there's just no support for it.
yeah, I mean it's definitely like clean, simple, pure Magic. Like it, you know, as much as the phrase "as Garfield intended" is kind of a joke and a meme, like it's kind of Magic as Garfield intended.
Yeah, I mean, the problem from a content creator side, I mean, I upload a Pioneer League, I get like 1,000 views. If I upload a Modern League, I get between 5 and 10k views. I mean, personally, it's just a waste of my time, and that's why the format is struggling with growth in content. You know, people are always tweeting like "play Pioneer, play Pioneer." I mean, just not enough support. That's kind of why I let it die.
You have to start somewhere.
I know, but the thing is, right? Like, it's like, what for what benefit? I mean, I don't really care about it's not in my benefit to kind of revive this format and to solo carry it for when I can just ride the wave of Modern. You know, it'll always be popular.
I think you should never do things you don't want to do, but like there's a million people who play Magic because not to create content though. I think they're not talking to you, Harry, person who plays Magic.
No, I'm saying like people's biggest argument is that there's no attention onto the game. No one makes good content for it. You know, that no one really makes content for it. I mean, there's a reason, because no one watches it. Yeah. And I think that's why I think the format died. There's no PTs, there's no whatever, no one streams it on Twitch to a big audience. Like, I think really the way you revive the format is through Aspiring Spike. That's my only guess. Honestly.
He's the only person who can possibly revive Pioneer.
Pioneer Trophy Challenge.
Ooh,
yeah, stop tweeting at me, tweet at Spike.
How's the trophy challenge going? Are you watching it, Harry?
Yeah, I am.
You want to give a bit of context to the thing that I just said?
Sure. So trophy challenge, for those listening don't know what it is. Basically, you can win a trophy for being undefeated in a league of Magic Online. There's a leaderboard for trophy earners, if you didn't know. And Aspiring Spike, if you don't know him, he's a popular streamer, has offered the top 3 trophies, and I believe also like punishments for himself, like gifting subs to his own channel if he doesn't come first, something like this. And basically he's competing against about 5 people, I would say. The main ones that I know are only the streamers. There's Misplaced Ginger, Demonic Tutors, and someone else. I'm not super updated, but I only follow Misplaced Ginger. Just to give a bit of background, he's the first streamer I first started watching because he did the Golgari mid-range as well as the Sultai mid-range and standard when I actually used to care about that format. So I am kind of rooting for Ginger. I watch him a lot. He helps me fall asleep at night. Not because he's boring, because he's Canadian, streams really late my time. And yeah, it's a lot of fun to watch. You know, it's like high stakes Magic Online in leagues. So, you know, if you want to kind of get invested with someone trophying other than the glory of seeing them get hyped, go watch Ginger, go watch Spike, or even Demonic Tutors, or the other streamers. There are many. I think there's one more streamer involved. Don't know all the names. I'm sorry.
I'm involved. I think I'm still stuck at 0, but first trophies should come anytime soon. No, I think they were tied at 38 yesterday, which is absurd. I mean, in theory, you know, on average, you should trophy 1 in 32 leagues. Jeez. Yeah, and you know, sure, they have a better win rate, but Moda also tries to pair you against people who have your record, so it's not like, you know, your matches should be tougher when you're 2-0, 3-0, 4-0. And yeah, it's just kind of absurd, astonishing. I haven't played a ton of Modern, but I've played now, I don't know, maybe 10, 15, 20 leagues total. I'm not sure, and I'm still don't have a trophy. Sure, I play on stream. Sure, I'm, you know, more casual about it, but yeah, it's so
acknowledging your role as a casual at the moment.
The funny thing is, I think they trophy, I would say, like, from watching, if I had to guess, I think they trophy about 1 in 8 leagues each. And these guys, they sit down, play all day. You know, if you think they do like 6 leagues a day, no, because they 0-1 drop, don't they?
Dude, no. Spike 3-1 dropped yesterday. He was 3-0. He lost and he dropped. Ooh. Yeah, no, it's it's getting serious. I was always
Yeah.
kind of serious, I guess, but it's
Oh
not.
my gosh. But yeah, they're like 0-1. They just drop whenever they lose. It's so nuts. So they pump out so many. I guess they don't really pump out leagues. I mean, the matches, I guess. But yeah, I think they probably. I guess maybe like it's close to like 1-8, between 1-8 and 1-12. I would guess is how often they trophy a league. It's really sick. You should watch it.
How often are you like supposed to trophy on average if you win like 60% of the matches or whatever?
Like 1-10.
Yeah.
Right? Is that right? Maybe that's not right.
Doesn't go from 1-32 to 1-10. I can.
Half of 32 is 16, right?
I'll calculate it while we keep talking, guys.
I think.
Let's actually stop and let him calculate it live on the air.
Well, no, dude. I don't do statistics. I do analysis. I rarely use the calculator. I'm all algebra based. So I don't like whenever someone's like,
That's the
"Oh,
thing,
you
number
study
of-
maths? What's 32 times 90?" I'm like, "Bro, I haven't touched a calculator in 2 years."
What's 9 times 5?
60.
45.
It's like, yeah,
Yeah,
you're close. It's like 8 per. It goes from like 1-32, which is what 3%, to 8, close to 8%. Yeah,
He says if you go from 50 to 60.
yeah,
Yeah.
50% win rate's 1-32, and 60% win rate is
Yeah.
1 in.
And
I don't know,
I would assume
13.
that the good Magic Online player has a maybe 70% win rate or something like that, maybe even a little bit higher.
Yeah, in modern, yeah, 60. Yeah, maybe the very top around 70. Yeah.
I know that when you look at like when they have the mock stats or whatever, like Jabberwocky's like lifetime win rate's like close to 70.
Really? Wow, lifetime. I think at a given
Yes.
time, maybe the best player in the format is at 70, 75, but lifetime, that's
I mean, obviously Jabberwocky's insane. Like,
kind of obscene, yeah.
incredible. And they also used to do that thing like with Finkel lifetime PT stats or something with like close to 70% win rate.
Yeah. I think on the PT, the top players have, 65% win rate. You know, maybe
Think about it.
maybe maybe one or a few of them were at close to 70, but
Yeah. I think Finkel was close to 70 when just from memory. And maybe Owen was as well at one point in time. But no, Owen probably had some bad years.
yeah, I'm not sure how accurate that stat is, or if I recall properly, but I think when I got inducted in the Hall of Fame, my win rate was 60 or 61%.
Yeah, funny you managed to bring it with you're in the Hall of Fame.
And it was surprisingly the same in Constructed and Limited.
That is surprising.
Yeah. I've just always, people have always made fun of my limited game, and I've always said I just run that in limited and spread my wins poorly in limited.
Your first PT win was Team Limited,
Yeah.
in Rochester.
Yeah, Team Rochester draft
With D Root and Gab Sang.
No, that was when I won. Oh, my first PT win. I thought first PT top 8. Yeah.
PT win, yeah.
I think my win percentage on Magic Online is like 56% when I checked on like a computer with like 1,000 matches.
Radio silence.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is towards the end of the episode, eh?
So you can edit that bit out. I was just giving you some silence, so you can edit that bit out, Harry.
Oh no, let's just move on. Life on the line. Price is right. What do you guys think?
I just while we're bragging about win rates or not bragging about win rates, when I checked my before they ended the DCI thing, I looked up the my GP win rate. My GP win rate was 70%.
Nice.
It was pretty nice.
My GP win rate is probably pretty high too. Oh, two quick things though before. Quick shout out, you mentioned Underworld Breach, and it made me think of Jiggy Wiggy, who top 4 the Modern Challenge, was his Underworld Breach deck he's been playing. If someone's looking for if someone's looking for something a little different and misses playing combo, I think it.
Yeah. Also, if you've got a 61st sleeve that's going like begging, like his decks always has 61 cards in them.
Yeah. So
and also 3 expressive iterations. So fancy that.
Second thing. We did the prices right on Lelia last week, and you crushed us, Harry, but I guess 25, and on Magic Online, the card is actually worth, like, literally 25 or 26 ticks. Just saying.
Wow.
Just saying my instincts were not like that wrong. I guess I need to adapt to life, so I don't know. I just figured I'd mention it.
Okay. Well, I
Just gotta
mean,
get that
I'll
back.
just win prices right this week, anyways. Why don't we do Luris? This
All
Price
right.
is Right.
Sure.
Fine.
Okay, I've got a really good guess as this one.
I got
I
it
think.
too.
Okay.
Actually, no,
Okay.
this is broken because I looked it up 2 days ago.
Yeah. So we're just doing closest to the price of Luris on card market wins.
Wait,
So I'll
Pat, you
do
said you
count.
looked it up 2 days ago?
I looked it up like 2 days ago. I was gonna buy it.
Oh, okay. Then we're not.
I would have guessed €5
I was gonna do
because
6.
it's limited and restricted
It's like,
everyone.
like 13, 14 euro.
Really?
Luris is.
How's
Wait,
it
that's
so
the wrong.
expensive? You don't even need more than one.
It's the
I
best
guess
card and it goes in every deck.
Yeah.
it is €9.
Okay.
Price trend €10, 23 last 30 days. Anyways, we need a card that we haven't looked up. Why not?
When did we talk
about
about?
Kaya's Guile?
Sure.
All right, I'm down with guys. Go.
Because that's Modern Horizons 1, right? Okay. Everyone got a price in their head?
It's a rare from Modern Horizons ones.
Yeah.
Okay. Sure.
3, 2, 1.
7.
€12.
Okay.
You said 3, I said
7 and
7.
12.
Oh, you said 12, so we're perfectly like kind of
Kaya's Guile is average price trend for the last 30 days is €5 and 4 cents. What did you say? 7?
7. Ding ding
Whoa,
ding.
you win.
I
because of the
win.
4 cents.
Oh, it's 4 cents. I thought you said 40 cents.
No, €5.
Wow, I
and
beat you by like pennies. Nice.
4 pennies.
Nice. I've been
but-
practicing. I'm in the US and I've been watching actual prices right on TV. So
But
I have
if
an
you take
edge
the
this
average
week.
price trend for this past 7 days, it's €4.99. I win. The past day is €4.76. I win.
I want to
The
hear
price
it.
trend forever is €4.96. I win. So if you want to take this like, oh, Liliana Magic Online, I beat you in every other price trend category. You're
Yeah.
lucky we choose past 30 days.
Yeah. I've actually been heinous at the prices right trying to guess because everything's like retail price, so I way under guess every time. And yeah. Anyways, what about life on the line?
Yeah. This
Life on the line.
lawn chair and like decking setting is like $895. Like, who on earth would fucking pay this?
Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah.
That's
But,
every time I watch The Price is Right as a kid.
Or like no, the worst is
$100 in the back on a
the
vacuum
wor-
cleaner.
the worst are the trips because they pay like who knows how much for a flight, like full, like yeah, it's kind of reminds me of when the Wizards used to buy our flights and they would just pay so much money for our flights. It was obscene. Just
It was really weird where you would like, they would basically tell you like, this is what we've estimated your flight to be, and you're like, holy shit, like I could just like take 2 connections and to go to different places that I want on the way back.
yeah.
If I look it up myself.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna complain. They were always really accommodating and got us good flights, you know, kind of as direct as possible.
It's great.
Yeah.
And I mean, you obviously did it a lot of times. The 3 times I went and took flights from them, they like let me tell them where I
Yeah.
wanted to go and when I
Yeah.
wanted to go,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
book whatever return legs I want. Essentially,
yeah.
I always went back by different places, and it's
Mm-mm-mm.
good. Good to make a holiday out of it. Play the game, see the world.
Yeah. Anyways, life on the line. For those who are listening, don't know what it is. It's a theoretical tournament tomorrow. If you win the event, you live. You lose, you die. Got to bring a deck from every format talked about today. You can do Pioneer if you want or not, but it's going to be Modern and Pioneer. I guess I'll start Modern. I'm going to go with four color control still. I think there's a lot of aggro decks, and I really like Omnath and Solitude in the same deck. I didn't like how Esper didn't have Solitude, because you don't have enough white cards or something. I don't know why. But I like having access to Solitude. And in Pioneer, I will actually play Matthew Falk's Mono Red deck. I really like that deck. Probably my favorite red deck all time in that format and in Magic in general. So, 4-color control in Modern and Mono Red in Pioneer. What about you guys?
I'm gonna played Living In last week, and I think the deck's really good. But I think Grixis Shadow is just the best deck in Modern. It has almost no bad matchups. Maybe Burn is tough, but yeah, it's close.
Yep, I'm Death Shadowing as well.
Yeah.
I think if you really think that people are going to turn up with a lot of Burn, I'd probably just put a bunch of collective brutalities in my sideboard. That's still pretty effective against Burn, I think. Burn hasn't really changed, so if I'm going to play Pioneer, though, I'm definitely not going to play that Jeskai Sanity deck. I think I would play like Blue Eye Control. I think the league I
Okay.
played was really fun, and playing all the kind of Dobbins Vetoes and Narsets and Teferi time, all four Teferi Hero of Dominaria. Yeah, good magic.
What is the cheap removal in that deck?
So it has Portable Holes, and
Oh.
it has Azorius Charm, and it has
Oh,
the
it does have its charm
the
seal.
Swords to Plowshares thing, or the thing that's like a exile creature or planeswalker, and
Oh,
you
the
get
new
a
one to get a
token.
token. What about
It's a new-
Isolate, the card we talked about last week? Any-
But there's no Ragabans or
Yeah, true. Okay.
Dragon Race Channel to kill.
All right.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, well, I guess that's kind of the end of the episode. Gab, where can we find you on the internet?
Twitch.tv/yellowhat, on Twitter @GavNasif, and yellowhat on YouTube.
Awesome. You can find me anywhere on the internet at HarryMTG, but go check out my YouTube as well. Just HarryMTG on YouTube. Trying to upload 2 or 3 times a week right now. See how well I can do. Pat, what about you?
You can find me anywhere on the internet at Get Smart, and if you're starting back up at uni, you can find me teaching, frantically preparing for tutorials starting for next week.
Awesome. I guess if you made it this far into the episode, I just want to remind you that the podcast is brought to you by Card Market. Shout out to them for sponsoring the cast.
Thank you very
And I guess we will catch you all next week.
Yeah. Thank you so much for listening. Take care.
much. Later, everyone.